Have you noticed how it seems like holiday decorations pop up earlier and earlier every year?
It's true.
Imagine feeling like that almost 2,000 years ago.
Wow.
The ancient Romans actually had this big week-long festival called Saturnalia every December.
Hmm.
It was a time for feasts and gift-giving
Mm.
and even turning the whole social order on its head.
Oh, wow.
So today we're going to take a deep dive into the history of Saturnalia
Okay.
and some other Roman traditions
Okay.
to see if they actually have anything to do with how you celebrate Christmas today.
It's really fascinating how that idea of Christians stealing Christmas from pagan traditions just keeps coming up over and over.
Yeah.
It really speaks to our curiosity about where our own traditions come from and how cultures influence one another over time.
Yeah, it really is like a historical mystery novel
Right.
with clues scattered across centuries.
Mm-hmm.
So let's put on our detective hats
Okay.
and examine the evidence.
All right.
Now, you brought some fascinating research on this topic.
They did, yeah.
What's the first theory we should unpack?
Well, one of the most popular claims is that key elements of Christmas,
Okay.
like the date we celebrate it
Hmm.
and the tradition of gift giving, were actually borrowed from these older pagan festivals like Sol Invictus
Okay.
and Saturnalia.
So the theory goes that early Christians saw those pagan celebrations going on,
Mm-hmm.
and they thought, hey, that looks like fun. Let's adapt that for our own holiday.
Right.
But is that really what happened?
Well, not necessarily.
Okay.
We need to look at each claim pretty closely.
Okay.
So, for example, you've probably heard the idea that Mithras,
Yes.
this Roman god, was born on December 25th.
Yeah, that one comes up a lot, especially in all those books and documentaries about alternative histories.
Right.
Sounds pretty convincing on the surface.
It does, but the truth is actually a little bit more complicated.
Okay.
The sources that we have don't actually support a December 25th birthday for Mithras. In fact, we don't have a confirmed birth date for him at all. And plus, the Mithras that was worshipped in Rome wasn't even the original Mithras.
Wait, there's more than one Mithras.
Exactly.
Wow.
So it seems that the Roman version,
Okay.
which was really popular among soldiers and officials, actually borrowed the name from an older Persian god, Mithra.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of like if you were to name your new restaurant after a really famous chef to try to give it more prestige.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So already we see how these assumptions can lead us down the wrong path.
They do.
Okay, what about Sol Invictus?
Okay.
The unconquered sun god.
Yeah.
Was December 25th really his big birthday bash?
That's another one that's often misunderstood.
Okay.
We do have a Roman calendar from the year 354 AD
Okay.
that mentions games being held on December 25th for the birthday of the unconquered one. But it's not totally clear from that calendar if that's referring to Sol Invictus specifically.
So there's some ambiguity there.
There is, yeah.
Our detective work is getting tricky.
It is.
Okay. So even if it was a celebration for Sol Invictus,
Okay.
the evidence suggests it wasn't his main festival.
Right. It seems like there's more evidence pointing to larger celebrations for Sol on other dates throughout the year.
Okay, so the idea that Christians chose December 25th to overshadow this major Sol Invictus celebration
Right.
might not hold up under scrutiny.
Right.
Let's move on to the really big December festival, Saturnalia.
Okay.
I don't know about you, but it's hard not to picture togas and chariots when you hear that name.
I know.
So Saturnalia was this major event for the Romans.
Mhm.
It was this week-long extravaganza
Wow.
starting on December 17th.
Okay.
Imagine role reversals, feasting, gambling, gift-giving.
Mm.
And they even elected a mock king to
Wow.
preside over the fun.
Oh, wow.
It's a time to really let loose.
It sounds a bit more like Mardi Gras than a cozy Christmas gathering.
It really does, yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the significance of all this revelry? Who was this Saturn guy?
Yeah.
And why did he inspire such a wild party?
Well, Saturn is this really complex figure in Roman mythology.
Okay.
He kind of embodies their fascination with their own origins and their sometimes conflicting views of the past. So some stories depict Saturn as this benevolent ruler of a golden age,
Okay.
while others paint him as this, fearsome god who devoured his own children.
Wow, that's quite a range.
I know, right?
I can see why his festival might have been a bit unpredictable.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, yeah.
So that duality reflects how the Romans viewed their own history.
Yeah, I think so.
They saw themselves as inheritors of both this glorious golden age and a time of barbarity.
Right.
And they were trying to reconcile those two ideas.
Yeah.
And so maybe Saturnalia was a way to kind of express that tension.
It's a really interesting way to put it, yeah.
So it was like a pressure valve, a way to blow off steam
Yeah.
and temporarily upend the social order before returning to normal life.
That's one way to think about it.
It's worth noting that not everyone was a fan of all the Saturnalia revelry.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, some Roman intellectuals, like Seneca and Pliny the Younger, saw all of that as like a disruption of order. They preferred to spend the time quietly studying.
Oh, so they were probably the original introverts who just wanted to stay home with a good scroll.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the poets, on the other hand, seemed to love Saturnalia.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Yeah. So poets like Catullus and Horace really embraced the spirit of Saturnalia. They were celebrating all the feasting and the fun and the chance to just let loose.
Yeah.
And their writings actually give us this really vivid glimpse into the energy and excitement of the festival.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we've got these two big December festivals in ancient Rome, Saturnalia and Sol Invictus.
Right.
Both with elements that might seem to echo our modern Christmas celebrations. But did those Roman festivals actually influence the development of Christmas?
Yeah, that's the big question.
That's the big question we're trying to answer.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
All right, so that's where our historical detective work gets even more interesting.
It does, yeah.
Let's take a closer look at the evidence.
Okay, well, one important piece of the puzzle here is that Saturnalia and Christmas were celebrated simultaneously for centuries.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So this suggests that they were actually seen as distinct events, not like a merging of traditions.
So people weren't confused about which holiday they were celebrating.
Right.
It wasn't like, honey, is this the Saturnalia feast or the Christmas dinner?
Exactly. Plus, there's also no evidence that early Christians even practiced gift-giving as part of their Christmas celebrations.
Oh, yeah.
Those customs emerged much later.
So that whole idea that Christians simply copied the gift-giving tradition from Saturnalia
Right.
seems to fall apart.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And here's another interesting twist for you. Early Christians actually viewed birthday celebrations as a pagan custom.
Wait, hold on. If they didn't celebrate birthdays,
Uh-huh.
why did they even choose a date for Christmas in the first place?
That's a great question. And it leads us to the real reason why December 25th became associated with Jesus' birth.
Okay.
It wasn't about appropriating pagan traditions.
Yeah.
It was actually rooted in like this deep theological reasoning connected to Jewish tradition.
Okay, I'm intrigued. This is where it gets really interesting. Tell me more.
Okay, so both Jewish and Christian scholars at the time believed in this kind of cosmic symmetry to the calendar. They saw significant events like creation or the birth of patriarchs as falling on the same date. And early Christians applied this thinking to Jesus' life.
So they were looking for patterns and deeper meaning in the flow of time.
Exactly. And they believed that Jesus died on the anniversary of his incarnation, you know, the moment he was conceived.
Okay, I'm following so far.
Okay.
But how does all of that lead us to December 25th?
Well, for reasons that are like kind of tied to the dating of Passover, Christians came to believe that the Annunciation,
Okay.
when the angel Gabriel appeared to Mary, occurred on March 25th.
9 months later, December 25th.
Precisely.
It all adds up.
So December 25th as the date for Christmas wasn't derived from pagan festivals,
Okay.
but from Christian theological calculations.
Okay.
Essentially, it was like calendar math with a deeper meaning.
So the stolen Christmas theory takes another hit.
Yeah.
But if those early Christians didn't even celebrate birthdays,
Right.
why did they eventually start celebrating Christmas at all?
Well, that shift likely came about because of like theological debates within Christianity.
Okay.
So some early Christians believed that Jesus was purely divine
Okay.
and not truly human.
I see. So emphasizing his birthday was a way to affirm his human nature after that idea.
Yeah, and it's this fascinating example of how those internal theological disputes can actually shape religious practices and traditions over time.
Yeah, it makes you realize that Christmas, as we know it today, evolved over many centuries.
Right.
Those early celebrations were probably quite different from the tree-decorating, gift-giving, carol-singing festivities that we know today.
You're absolutely right. It's important to remember that traditions change and adapt. But here's where things get even more interesting.
Okay.
While Saturnalia might not be the direct ancestor of Christmas,
Okay.
it does make us think about those deeper human needs that festivals fulfill,
Okay.
regardless of the specific religious context.
That's a good point. What is it about the darkest time of the year
Uh-huh.
that seems to make us want to celebrate, to overturn norms,
Right.
to exchange gifts?
Yeah.
We see this impulse across cultures and throughout history.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, if you think about it.
Okay.
The winter solstice is a time of darkness and scarcity and uncertainty. It's a time when people naturally crave light and warmth and a sense of hope.
That makes sense, that we'd want to find ways to bring light and joy into that darkness.
Right.
Both literally and figuratively.
Exactly.
So lighting candles, decorating trees, gathering with loved ones.
Yeah.
It's all about creating warmth and connection during a cold and dark season.
Exactly. And those rituals of reversal, like the ones we see in Saturnalia,
Yeah.
where social norms are temporarily flipped upside down,
Yeah.
could be a way to release built-up social pressures.
So letting loose, even just for a little while,
Uh-huh.
could actually help maintain social order in the long run.
That's one way to interpret it.
It's like a pressure valve for society.
Yeah. And what about gift giving?
Okay.
Is there a deeper meaning there
Yeah.
beyond just the material exchange of presents?
I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Well, gift giving can serve a lot of different social purposes.
Okay.
It can strengthen bonds between people,
Uh-huh.
reinforce hierarchies,
Okay.
or even act as a form of economic redistribution within a community.
So it can be a way to acknowledge our interdependence and
Evidence.
connect with each other in a tangible way.
And we can't forget about the psychological aspect of gift giving either.
Yeah.
Like, giving gifts can be an act of generosity, a display of affection, or even in some cases, a way to try to assert status.
It's amazing how something as seemingly simple as a gift can carry so much meaning and have so many social implications, both positive and negative.
Yeah, it really highlights the complexity of human behavior
Yeah.
and how our traditions often reflect those complexities. And that brings us back to your initial question, did Christians steal Christmas? Based on the evidence, I think the answer is much more nuanced than a simple yes or no.
So it's not a clear-cut case of theft,
Right.
but more of a complex interplay of influences, reinterpretations,
Yeah.
and that very human desire to mark time, to
Yeah.
celebrate, and to find meaning in the cycles of the year.
You put it perfectly, and that's what makes studying history so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's not just about memorizing dates and facts. It's about understanding the enduring human impulses that shape our cultures and traditions,
Yeah.
the things that connect us across time
Yeah.
and make us who we are.
Yeah, it really is. Like, our modern Christmas traditions are woven from these threads of ancient history and religious beliefs and those timeless human desires to celebrate and to find meaning, especially during the darkest time of year.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Yeah, and just as those Saturnalian revelers found release and connection in their temporary inversion of social norms, perhaps our own holiday traditions offer a similar kind of escape. A chance to step outside the everyday and connect with something larger than ourselves.
So even if we're not electing a mock king or donning togas,
Right.
we're still tapping into those ancient human impulses to celebrate, to connect, and to find light in the darkness.
Exactly. And that shared human experience, that
Yeah.
need for ritual and connection, it really transcends time and culture. It's this powerful reminder of our shared humanity even across millennia.
I never thought I'd get so philosophical about Christmas.
Right.
But you're right, it's more than just a holiday.
Yeah.
It's a reflection of who we are, both as individuals and as a species.
And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the history of Christmas.
Oh.
But before we go, I have one final provocative thought for you to consider.
Oh, I do love a good cliffhanger. Lay it on me.
Okay, so if Saturnalia served as this kind of safety valve for Roman society,
Okay?
allowing for that temporary inversion of social norms and a release of pressure,
Mm-hmm.
what does that tell us about our own need for similar outlets today? In a world that can feel increasingly structured and controlled,
Yeah.
do our holidays, even with all their commercialization,
Yeah.
still offer us a necessary space for letting loose, for challenging conventions, for rediscovering those childlike impulses of joy and wonder?
That's such a great question. It makes me think about how our celebrations, even the ones that have become, very commercialized, can still tap into something primal,
Yeah.
something essential about the human spirit.
Indeed. And as you enjoy your next holiday season, perhaps you'll find yourself noticing those echoes of ancient rituals.
Mhm.
Those glimpses of timeless human desires kind of woven into the fabric of our modern celebrations.
I know I will. This deep dive has completely changed how I think about Christmas.
Oh, that's great.
It's like I've unwrapped a whole new layer of meaning and history.
And that's the power of curiosity and a willingness to dig beneath the surface.
Yeah.
There's always more to discover, even in the most familiar of traditions.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the history of Christmas. And to all our listeners, happy holidays, however you choose to celebrate.